And Chris Lee and Chase Robinson of Southeastern 16. We are reacting live to Ohio State's defeat of Texas in the Cotton Bowl. First of all, congratulations to the Buckeyes. They will take on Notre Dame in the national title game. And frankly, Chase, before we get to Texas, looking like the best team in the country, in my opinion, is Ohio State.
No, they're skilled. They're fast. They've got playmakers. Will Howard just doing great things, and even when their main receiver didn't play well tonight, didn't have many catches, just a couple of yards, they still found ways to make it happen offensively. Their defense, especially near the goal line, like we saw there at the end of the game, is incredible. Just an all-around solid team is the Buckeyes, and I'm not saying Notre Dame doesn't have a chance, but it's going to be a challenge for Notre Dame. But it's Ohio State is just all around solid and playing that way right now.
The crazy thing too is Jahdae Barron just does a job on Jeremiah Smith tonight.
Yeah.
And it still wasn't good enough for Texas.
Yep. Yeah, I mean that says a lot right
and
there.
And really, yeah. And apologies, we got a small delay on our end, so hopefully that will not last. But Chase, the game really came down to three big plays tonight, two or three. One would have been, well, I think in order, the screen to Travion Henderson just before the half. You almost never see a play like that work to the magnitude that it worked in a game like this. You will see something like that if, Alabama's playing Louisiana Monroe or something like that in one of those games where a team is just outmatched in talent. But on a night where Will Howard didn't have a ton of success throwing the ball down the field, Texas had just gotten even. And you felt like, okay, you're feeling pretty good about where this game go. That was the first of about three backbreakers.
It was, yeah, and that's one you want back, and yeah, that was an interesting moment there, and they would like that one back.
Yeah, I think the other one, the other two, Will Howard, the draw play on 4th and 2, where he probably scores if he doesn't trip over the 15-yard line or whatever that was. That was one, and then the end, and this one is going to be talked about forever in Austin. You got 2nd and goal at the 1. Ohio State is really, really tough to run on. You got an All-American center, best left tackle in the game, according to the experts. You go wide. You lose 6 yards, and it sets up the play that killed your season. But that is going to be the one that's talked about forever, justifiably. So I thought maybe you go play action there. You got a tight end, a Gunnar Helm, who's a weapon anywhere, but particularly can be a weapon on the goal line. You got pass interference flags flying all night. Yeah. And I'm not saying they were wrong. Ohio State was really handsy in this one. I thought got called for it more in the first half than the second. But, I mean, that is going to be one. And I get you got Kelvin Banks. You can go left. I'd have to go back and, I don't know who missed the block. But that is going to be one. I don't think that you call that anyway. As someone texted me, that is sort of a Pete Carroll Super Bowl moment.
Yeah.
But that was the season right there. Ohio State, 2 plays later, gets a strip sack and an 82-yard scoop and score, and there's your ball game. I mean, you just sneak it up the middle, you throw it to Helm, you do anything, you probably tie the game, and guess what? We're probably still playing football.
No, I'm not going to sit here and criticize Sarkisian for his play calling. I thought he called a great game. I really did. Except that play there, there's so many things that Texas is good at that they could have, I feel like, gotten around the really strong goal line defense that Ohio State has. I mean, if you were watching the broadcast, you heard Chris and Kirk talking about how great Ohio State was defensively at the goal line. There's so many things that Texas could have done there that I feel like could have been successful even on the good goal line defense, but it was not that. It was, and clearly not that.
Yeah.
And again, I feel like they did so many great things, and Sark drew up so many interesting designs tonight that he had to against this really good Ohio State defense, except for when the game was on the line, except when you had to score to win, and they couldn't do it. I hated to see that for Texas, because I feel like some of the things he had drawn up, he could have been a little more creative there, and not just try to run it at this Ohio State defense. No team can punch it in like that on this kind of Ohio State team.
Yeah, I think the other thing, we said this in our previews, Texas is a much different team when it runs the football well. We circle that as maybe the key. I mean, that and containing Jeremiah Smith, which, like, who had he had 3 yards tonight? Was that the final tally?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, Jahdae Barron just locked. Jahdae Barron's a guy that made a lot of money tonight, I think, with that performance. But your issue was you couldn't run the ball. You got 2 pretty good running backs in Wisner and Blue. Neither of them really did much. And I think that ended up, I mean, and hey, again, back to the key play of the game. You can't run the ball, 2nd and goal from the 1. You go wide, and there's your ball game. That ended up being, I think, if you could boil the game down to one storyline, it would be Texas didn't run the ball, Texas didn't win.
Yeah. No, and that's what I was waiting. I was kind of waiting for kind of to break loose a little bit, the run game. And I thought, well, it's going to be tough against Ohio State. But they couldn't do it, especially in crucial moments, like we've said. And here they are. They're going to be sitting watching the national championship. But again, first season of the SEC, I thought it was a good one for Texas. But again, some moments just got away. They couldn't run the ball tonight, and you put all that together, and it's hard to beat a team like Ohio State when you're not doing what you do the best, and you're not doing it well. It's going to be a tough night, and it was.
Yeah, it really was. The legacy of Texas this season, and then maybe SEC, we'll get into that a little bit. Texas could have like a dozen guys drafted this year. That's probably going to include Quinn Ewers, who said today he's, I think, declaring for the draft. Jahdae Barron is going to, I think, move up draft boards after tonight. He was maybe a 2nd rounder. I mean, depending on where you look. I mean, we really don't know how this is going to look till after the combine. But, Thorpe Award winner, with what he did tonight, to me, that's a 1st-round defensive back.
Yeah.
You got the best left tackle in the game. You lost 3 games. You really didn't have a lot of wins of consequence, Chase. We said it all year. This was a Texas team that we loved the talent. We loved them in spots. And the legacy was either going to be they put it all together at the very end, or they didn't. And unfortunately for the SEC, it was the latter.
Yeah. And look, Chris, I don't think they played a complete game this whole season. If I just think back over all the games and that we saw Texas play this year, I don't think we can walk away from any of them and say, you know what, Texas played a complete game in that one. Like, I feel like they sputtered. They They had issues in every single game. And I thought maybe tonight would be the night, hey, semifinals. But yeah, I feel like we can't say, Texas played a complete game, any game this season, really.
Yeah. I think I said this earlier. It felt like, and I'm going to go pull up the schedule just to see if this held water and I didn't forget something. But it felt like the Florida game was as close to a game that Texas played all year. And again, that was catching Florida at a time where they were very vulnerable.
Yeah, you're right. And I would say, yeah, that definitely is the closest one to a complete game. Because yeah, it was so it was so bizarre for Texas this year. Because again, we've talked about their roster so much, and we've Sark's a great coach. They got great players, but yeah, it just something wasn't right. Something just wasn't. And so much depth. That's another thing. So much depth on this team. It just feels like something just wasn't right this year for Texas. The fact that they weren't able to, play to the level I feel like they should have.
Yeah, I'm going back and looking. The Michigan win in the Big House early in the season was a better win than I think we would have thought most of the season. But the offense was just. Well, I mean, I say the offense was underwhelming. Michigan's defense ended up being really, really good. So we'll give credit where it's due there. Yeah, the Georgia game where Texas just no shows for the first half. I mean, Oklahoma, that was a 34-3 win. They looked dominant. Oklahoma just didn't have enough healthy bodies at the time. Never really did all season. The Florida game, we talked about that one. I remember A&M game. They just did nothing offensively.
Yeah.
In stretches. And it was just a weird year. Like everything was on the table for Texas. This was a team that was talked about as one of the top 2 or 3, 4 teams in the country coming in. This is the team that got gifted a schedule as easy as you're going to get in the SEC. It was a team that got gifted not an awful draw in the playoff. End of the day, they couldn't take advantage of it.
Yeah. You're right. And yeah, it was I'm interested to see again, it's the off season now, starting now for Texas. I'm interested to see what a lot of these players do, what Quinn Ewers does, what Sark can put together in the off season, and try to win the SEC. Because I think as long as Steve Sarkisian is the head coach of Texas, they're going to be very relevant. They're going to be competing for the SEC. They're going to be a college football playoff team. And I think, again, this was, they got there last year, couldn't finish the game. Got there to the semifinals this year, couldn't finish a game. Like they're going to have to put it together eventually. You can't just get there. I mean, they've got to get over this hump, and they've got to figure out, what they can do to do that.
I will be interested to see how they reload. We talked about the depth being an issue all year, but they'll lose maybe 2 first-round linemen. They do get Arch Manning back. Ewers will be gone. They'll get healthier in the backfield. I mean, this is a team that's been killing it in recruiting. I suspect Texas will be really good. But Chase, they lost a lot of dudes off this team. And I'll be very interested because I think the teams that made the playoff, just the way everything is, you're preparing to win a national title, you're trying to keep your guys, and then the portal explodes right in the midst of all that. Talent in the portal is not right now quite what it's been. We get the window after the spring again, but I'll be interested to see when the polls come out where Texas will be. I mean, that's in the rankings somewhere. Don't know if it's going to be top 5 again.
No, I don't know if it will be. But again, I definitely think that they're going to be good. They're going to be talented. Sark's a great offensive mind. He'll be able to make it a good team. I think he's a good coach. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know where they'll put them in the preseason. But again, I think Texas has a chance to get some guys in and get this program, back to back in the playoffs like they've been the last 2 years, and see if they can go win the SEC.
All right, bigger implications for the SEC. Because, boy, people had some fun with this. SEC won't have anybody in the title game, had one team in the quarterfinals. Your conference champion crashed and burned, although I think an injury to your starting quarterback has to be a footnote there. Tennessee got clobbered in Columbus, although that doesn't look so bad now. Alabama doesn't make it. We were talking preseason. We thought 5 or 6 teams had a shot to make it. Looking back now, that was never realistic. Everything had to break really well, and we did not know the bottom and the middle of the league was going to be as strong as it was. I think if you were an SEC hater, you're listening to this and you're saying that's excuse making. I don't think it was. Maybe so, but it's fact. Look at the power rankings. You look at where the bottom and the middle of the SEC was. You compare that to everybody else. For whatever that's worth, probably not a lot when we're talking about national titles, but it was a factor. Alabama dropping a couple of games to those type of teams, kept the tide out. But bottom line, whatever reasons we find for it, the SEC, at least as we're sitting here doing this, the night of the quarterfinals, has been brought back to the pack. And I'll be very interested to see what next year looks like. Because it feels to me right now, Texas probably, I'm going to guess, drops off a little bit next year. Georgia lost Carson Beck today, or yesterday, or whenever it was now. I guess yesterday. I'm not sure Tennessee is going to be able to reload in the portal like it has before. A lot of time between now and then. Maybe Alabama gets you back there. Maybe Florida takes a jump up. Long time between now and then when the roster's settled. But it feels like for the time being, as of tonight, the league has been pulled back to the pack of college football, and that is going to be a big talking point all winter, spring, and summer.
No, there's no doubt about it. I mean, I've already seen things saying, this is the first time since 04-05 that the SEC has gone back-to-back years without having a team in the national championship game. And so, yeah,
goodness,
that's a long run, that the SEC had at least one team, and some of those years there were multiple SEC teams, teams playing each other for a national championship. And so, yeah, I mean, that's going to be the talk, and that's what people want to talk about. The SEC has dominated college football for so long. That the people who aren't, don't have a dog in the fight in the SEC want to see the conference not be in the national championship. I think that's just, and we talked about it earlier on our live stream, just how level the playing field is now in college football because of the transfer portal and NIL and guys moving around and not staying with one team. Like, I don't know. It's I think all of college football is better. And so therefore the SEC is not going to dominate as they have. Like, a lot of these SEC players that may have been on SEC teams are going elsewhere now because of NIL deals and all that. And so it's not the same as it was. Like, the SEC is still going to be good, but all of college football and Power 5 football is going to be better now. And so I think that's important to note, that it's not the SEC per se. It's all of college football is just getting better, and so therefore
Yeah.
those at the top are having to share their players with other schools, Big Ten, ACC, whatever it is, and so therefore you're not going to see the SEC at the top every single year anymore. So it's just the ever changing world of college football.
Well, and like SMU jumps up, they've got a money machine down there in Texas. They make the playoff. I don't think that program's going anywhere for a while. Indiana, out of the blue, becomes a playoff team this year. And I know Indiana's been a punchline. I think Indiana deserved to be there. The 12 teams make it. They're not all flawless teams. And there's a lot of parity anyway. But somebody put in the chat the league needs to go nine games. That is not going to happen. Again, I think the structure that the committee put in place this year incentivizes schedule a light non-conference, and I think you saw a big correlation to this in both the Big Ten and the SEC. When you go to these 16 to 18 team super conferences, and a lot of people say, "Hey, SEC, you get what you deserve." You know what? That was going to be potentially a consequence of all this. But I think Tennessee and Texas probably had the lightest schedules in the league this year. They made the playoff. Alabama had maybe the toughest, one of the toughest. Bama got left out because it caught 3 losses. Georgia somehow got through all that, but did take a couple of losses. You look at the Big Ten, Indiana didn't really play anybody. Played Ohio State. Got beat decisively. I think a lot of the teams that caught the easy ends of the schedules were the teams that made it. That's not going to entice anybody to schedule tougher out of conference until the committee starts to reward it. And unfortunately, I think, and I love the 12-team playoff, Chase. I think it's a great thing. I think you change the seeding. You don't give the buys to the champions. You just seed them the way you've got them right, and that problem fixes itself. But the issue you're going to have now is the teams that draw the easiest conference schedules are going to have a big leg up in making this event unless the committee changes the way that it does, which I hope it does. And I think it is going to make for a worse quality of college football. And here's the other thing. People said, well, Texas isn't that good. I disagreed with that. I said Texas was a product of a weak schedule. But the truth is, you don't know how you're going to perform against the heavyweights till you get there.
Yeah.
And you know what? When the SEC hit those teams, it didn't go well.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, I'm interested to see what next year will look like. And again, we have now all quite a few months to break it all down and get ready for next season and figure out who's going to be on everybody's roster and everything. And but I mean, I don't think we'll go to the nine game schedule. And I think everybody's still trying to figure out what they need to do when it comes to this 12-team playoff. And I think, what their schedule needs to look like. Who do they need to play? Who do they need to impress? Is kind of what the teams are going to have to look out now when they make their schedules, when they get ready for their season. So, but it's I'm already looking forward to next season because I know the SEC again will have a chance for several teams to be in the playoff. And look, again, teams working right now, rebuilding these rosters. They could look totally different for every team next year. That's crazy.
Yeah, it usually does. Well, we'll put a bow on it tonight. Apologies for the quality of the broadcast. I don't know if it was an internet issue. I think it may be a StreamYard issue tonight, but apologies if we had a lag in the feed. all those things. I don't know what's going on this week, but it's been something. But anyway, Chase, it was a fun season. I don't think it ended the way we thought it would, but we'll be back at it for next year. Looking forward to seeing how that goes in the always interesting world of college football.
Yep. No off season. We roll 365 with SEC football.
We do. We got basketball to talk about tomorrow. I spent my day preparing for baseball season, trying to get ahead of that. Hope you liked it. Hit the subscribe button and enable your notifications so you know when we produce content. For Chase Robinson, I'm Chris Lee. God bless you. Have a great night. You've been watching SEC football coverage here at Southeastern 16.